So my name's Marc. I'm the art director at Douze-Dixièmes, a French studio we founded in 2017, and I'm gonna talk to you about Shady Part of Me, our first game, which came in December of last year, published by Focus Home Interactive. And more specifically, I'm going to talk to you about how we managed to conciliate onirism in the art direction with strict puzzle games mechanics, and which means how and why we tricked players with fake shadows in our game. So let me introduce quickly how this game came to be. We were 7 friends, and we founded this company together. It starts in a bar. We were drinking together, and suddenly one of us said, "Hey guys, let's make a video game." Another one added, "Oh, excellent idea. Let's make a video game about light and shadow." Third one said, "Hey, that's a good idea for puzzle mechanics." Another one added, "Oh, we can make a really interesting story about self-growth." And the last one said, "Yeah, let's make this game on a custom engine." So this started somehow as a joke, but we decided we'd go for it, and we founded the company in the 1st of April 2017. The jokes continue, and we started working on Shady Part of Me, which was our first game. So Shady Part of Me is a puzzle platformer with a story where you play 2 characters, a little girl and her shadow, which are separated but complementary. What I mean by that is that the little girl is afraid of the light and she cannot walk in the light, and the shadow is she cannot live in darkness. So both of them will have to help each other to go through the game. So you can switch from one character to the other at will, and you'll have to push crates, move objects, move lights to progress through different puzzles and different environments. We wanted the game to feel different than what we saw, and we wanted it to look more like as if the story was told through drawings on a sketchbook. So we started working on a non-photorealistic rendering. My friend Joran did an excellent work on it, with lots of back and forth, sometimes really time consuming and moral consuming, but we managed to have a really good result on this. And the image is made of different layers. Well, there's a paper grain, some spots of water painting, the etching for the ambient occlusion, and the outlines around the objects to make it look more like a drawing. At one point in development, we placed a cube in a blank room, and we had this image, and this looked beautiful, and we were like, yeah, that's it. That's what we want to have in the game. So this is a good sign when you place a box in a blank room and you're satisfied with the result. That's what you want to go for. So during the game, you play in environments that are interpretation of the imagination of the little girl. So you have different locales, different environments that are huge and strange, and they are not always realistic, because they are this interpretation of the mind of the little girl. But we wanted to we wanted still to make sure that it was clear for the player what he was going to do, so we made the game in grayscale in order to make sure that you can differentiate what is lit and what isn't, and to make sure that the player knew if one character can go somewhere and if it can't. But we wanted, as much as the environments are strange, we wanted to make sure that there were some realism in how we treated light and shadow, because it feels kind of dumb said like that, but we wanted the rule of the game to be intuitive to the players. And since, people are used to light and shadow because they see it every day, everywhere, we made the assumption that people know how shadows work. And it's a rich mechanic in it of itself, because there's plenty of stuff to do with the light and shadows. When you move a light up and down, the shadow shrinks and grows. When you move a light from left to right, the shadow moves from right to left. When you place an object in front of a light, closer, it means the shadow will be big, and further away it would be small. So we could make a few puzzles already with this in mind, and this is where we started to go. We knew still that from an early stage, and more from an artistic perspective, that there would be some shadows that we would fake in the game. Those shadows were mostly, from an artistic point of view, we wanted some object to cast shadows that weren't exactly the shadow of the object they came from, in order to give more to illustrate the difference in imagination of the little girl. So this one, for instance, is not in the game, but is a good illustration of this idea that objects are not casting their shadow. One of other example that is in the game is the paper boat. The paper boat is casting so the shadow of a real boat, and in order to achieve that, we made sure that the paper boat in the game, the 3D paper boat, doesn't cast the shadow, and we made a decal on the wall and animated both to do the same travel on the screen. So this is the result in game, which is quite cute. So I'm selecting different sorry. And another example of fake shadows, which is quite obvious, is the fact that the two characters are different, and their treatment is different as well. So the shadow of the little girl is animated in 3D, and the shadow is exactly the same as the boat, a drawing on the wall, deformed by where she's cast, and she is animated in frame by frame animation, 12 frames per second, sometimes 18, sometimes 60. So here is an example. And while we were making the game, we realized that we had some issues, more from a gameplay perspective. And we realized that some other shadow will need some faking around. The most obvious example I can think of is the crates of the game. We have a mechanic that is introduced later on in the game, which is the gravity mechanic, where the shadow can change gravity depending on which object she is standing on. And if you combine this mechanic with the fact that boxes, when they are at the border of a light, cast a shadow with a chamfer. This allowed the shadow to change gravity pretty much anywhere. And don't say that to a speedrunner, because it's gonna break the game. And in order to make sure that we don't have this problem, we decided to fake these shadows by just placing a plane in front of the crate, and this plane was going to cast the shadow instead of the crate, and the crate wasn't going to cast any shadow, which eliminates every chamfer in the game. We were a bit afraid that some players would notice that and says, well, that is not true, that's not real, you're cheating me, this is not the real shadow of the real crate. And at this point in development, we weren't really sure what players were going to accept and what they were not. So we made a few in-house playtests where we brought some of our friends and family around to test a few puzzles and see how they cope with it. And so, well, I'm gonna show some images from early development stage of the game. So it's gonna be quite strange to the eye. And so during playtests, we noticed that, it wasn't that obvious for players how shadow work. This is the moment where we realized that when more than two objects in a scene were moving at the same time, players were starting to get lost, and especially if the scenes were dressed. If there were a lot of objects casting shadows and the light was moving, players were just not sure of what button made what object move, and so it wasn't that intuitive for players. And we realized that if we wanted to make it clear, we'll have to do some tricks. The first one, which is the most obvious one in my opinion, was to make sure that patterns were easily understandable, that when an object casts a shadow, it is obviously the shadow of this object that is cast on the wall, because you recognize the object on the wall. And in plenty of places in the game, we started to make objects that are obviously the same on the wall and on the floor, even if these were not the real shadows that were cast. For instance, there is this, which is yeah, I don't have the word for that in English, I'm sorry. So we place these objects, so it is kind of obvious which one casts which shadow, but if you look at the real shadow of the object, it is much bigger. So it is a fake object that is casting a fake shadow in front of the wall. And we started using this pretty much everywhere in the game, because we realized that as long as the player doesn't feel cheated, we can use pretty much every trick in the book to make something look cute, understandable, and if it doesn't break the rule of the game, this is how you want to approach the problem. So lights were customly made for each object, with sprites on the wall most of the time, and as long as it makes sense for the player, you're in the green. We used patterns to make the player feel as if he's standing on shadows of object in the scene, even if there is no object in the scene casting this shadow at any given point, but it looks like it's a shadow, and this is enough for the player because it doesn't mind this kind of tricks. So if you remove every single sprite from the wall, well, there is no shadow to walk on. And so this is pretty much how we did it. It's with that in mind, the fact that players are the most important person in your game, because they are the ones that enjoy your game. The important thing is they don't feel cheated, even if everything you place in the game isn't really what should happen with light and shadows. And I said at first how and why and where we trick the player with fake shadows. The answer is pretty much everywhere. There are really few lasting real shadows in the game, and there certainly isn't an entire puzzle where we didn't trick in one way or the other the players in the game. I might have one which is a bit tricky. There is the box trick in it, but I'm gonna finish on this, and that's pretty much it. If you have any question, I should be here right now. Thank you very much. Spasiba.
Thanks, Marc. Your Russian is really amazing. Thanks. Marc, we don't listen to you?
Yep, I'm here. Hello. Thank
Hello.
you.
Your game is absolutely amazing. I'm very inspired to play this after DevGAMM.
Well, thank you. I hope you will and enjoy it.
So we have a couple of questions and time to discuss it. So Valeria asks how to avoid the problem of duplication ideas. Do you have special process of creating unique mechanics, arts, and stories?
I'm not sure to understand exactly what is duplication ideas, but I can answer the second part of the question. We don't have a special process for anything. We are building them. This was our first game, so we were kind of throwing darts in the dark when we were working on this. So it's been mostly a lot of discussions between the members of the team, and well, this is pretty much it. we are starting to get process in place.
We have another similar question. Anastasia asks, did you create your game entirely based on your own ideas, or did you look for similar games or collaborated with other studios? I think they ask about references, like do you base your game on references, or do you search for them or not?
We look at what exists. We looked at it. We wanted to make sure mostly that the ideas we were exploring weren't already done by someone else, and if we feel that our game differed enough, was different enough from what existed. Contrast was, of course, one of the game we looked at. That there was also Shadow Puppeteers, which already existed and is kind of the same ideas and working around the same concepts. But we felt like the way we worked around the idea was different, and we focused more on the puzzle aspect on the game, and this is what is the result. We are quite proud of what we made, and we are happy that Focus Home Interactive published the game, because we were scared, because they did publish Contrast before, and we were wondering if they would want to publish another game about light and shadows, and then they did, and we are really thankful for this. The game is named Shady Part of Me, because I saw this in the chat. Jaroslav Kravsky. So sorry for the name.
That's all right. We have another question in the chat. So Evgeny asks, did you use physical prototypes while modeling to understand the mechanics? Very interesting question.
We watched a lot of pictures and photographs with light and shadows. There was a time when we were walking in the street and there was some kind of light. We were like, oh, this could be really interesting in the game. And the main problem with physical simulations of this is that when you place two lights, you've got two shadows, and that we had to work around this problem and make sure that that we had one light at a time in the game to make sure that we don't have two shadows crossing each other. And afterwards, later on, when the game was quite advanced, we reintroduced this in the game. But we didn't make prototypes in real life, and that is the question.